This young actor was using the tuition money his grandfather gave him to basically bankroll his friends, just so they'd shower him with praise. Truth be told, he was also partly delusional about his own talent. After that, he'd zoom around on his motorcycle, also courtesy of his grandfather's tuition money, trying to pick up girls. He couldn't wipe the grin off his face. You'd think he could spend money like it was water because he was his grandfather's favorite grandson. But that wasn't the whole story. His grandfather was actually the biggest threat to his dream of becoming an actor. He always wanted his eldest grandson to graduate from a respectable university. So, he issued an outright ban on Ti-Woong participating in any acting gigs. But Ti-Woong, fearless as ever, even dared to bring classmates from his acting class to the family barber shop for free haircuts. That's when his grandfather showed up, absolutely fuming. But with his slick talking skills, Ti-Woong managed to get the old man to back down pretty quickly. Who would have guessed? He ended up getting busted by a police officer for speeding and reckless driving and hauled straight to the station. His grandfather showed up to bail him out, but the officer's plan had actually been orchestrated by the grandfather himself. Still, deep down, he loved his grandson, so he took him to get his perm fixed and his appearance spruced up before taking him home and grounding him. If he was going to be grounded, he might as well be handsome while he was at it. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, everyone's listening to the legend of the nine-tailed fox. Beside the three gods' grandmothers in the painting, it was actually the pet that three gods' grandmothers was taking care of. She constantly intended to get down to the mortal realm to find romance. And based on her amazing beauty, wherever she goes the men will be crazy for her. To the point where the girls were jealous of the fox's beauty and spread rumors that she ate men's livers, causing her to be abandoned. Then, they went to ask the three gods' grandmothers to lock the fox up to avoid causing harm to the human world. In the end, the goddess had to cut all 9 of her tails and lock her in the painting, forever. Back with the eldest grandson in the family history, who was loved from a young age, he continued to fight with his grandfather to the end. Regardless of the pleading calls of his grandfather, he sneaked onto a truck and ran away. He accidentally stumbled into a shrine and, feeling lost, decided to borrow the abbot's phone to call home. Unexpectedly, he encountered a strange phenomenon. Even though the phone was out of battery, he could still hear sounds coming from it. I tell you, the space, along with the gloomy rain, the booming thunder, and the haunting voice echoing, scared him to the point of almost fainting. But in the end, he was captivated, gradually following the instructions into the temple. Before his eyes was a beautiful painting, depicting a tail-less fox standing next to a goddess. The voice continued to coax him to draw 9 tails for the fox. As if under a spell, he obediently drew according to the instruction, without hesitation. When the 9th tail had just been drawn, a storm broke out. The guard dog outside barked incessantly. The abbots quickly ran to check what was happening. And oh dear, the painting only had the goddess. The fox vanished to who knows where. As it turns out, the fox used her magic to enchant Ti-Woong to draw tails in order to regain strength and escape from the painting. In a state of panic, Ti-Woong ran towards the mountain and unfortunately fell down. With that height, perhaps he would return to the afterlife. However, the fox repaid the gratitude and did not hesitate to transmit her sacred pill to his body, helping him maintain his life. The next day, Ti-Woong woke up to find himself dangling on a tree, and a beautiful lady came over to talk to him. He was overjoyed, but unexpectedly, the more he talked, the more he felt that this girl just fell from the sky. Ti-Woong decided. The two parted ways. Calamity after calamity, Ti-Woong continued to be attacked by a wild boar, running for his life. But he still tried to play the hero and save the beautiful woman. He grabbed her hand, and together they made it through the thick undergrowth, successfully escaping the wild boar. For her, Ti-Woong had been getting cuter and cuter ever since the fox in the painting disappeared. The guard dog next door kept barking incessantly, forcing the head monk to call the police to investigate. But what cop is going to believe this kind of crazy story? A fox disappears from a painting, and they're supposed to go look for it. Little did they know that the dog's owner was a sorcerer in disguise as a veterinarian. He had a close relationship with the head monk, so he easily got his hands on the cell phone that the male lead had forgotten the night before. That was the only clue he had to track down the fox. Meanwhile, ever since the fox was freed, she'd been sticking to Ti-Woong like glue, never leaving his side, and on top of that, she kept demanding to eat meat, like a whole damn cow. Feeling sorry for this girl who clearly had some issues, he reluctantly took her to a roadside Korean BBQ joint. There, even though she was dying for raw meat, she had to force herself to eat it cooked to try and blend in with the other normal people. Feeling uneasy about the situation, Ti-Woong tricked her by saying he needed to use the restroom. But really, he snuck off to a public phone to call the monk to come get her. When the male lead was gone for too long, the fox started looking for him in the restroom. This was the first time she'd ever seen a toilet, so she mistook it for a well. She was about to take a big gulp to quench her thirst when she almost dropped a piece of meat down the drain. Luckily, she was so focused on fishing out the meat that she wasn't discovered when the monk arrived. Ti-Woong tried to avoid her, but no matter where he went, the fox could sniff him out. Furious at being stalked, he shoved her away and started yelling at her. "I've never seen a girl so thick-skinned, pretending to be crazy to chase after a guy like you are." She explained that she was a fox spirit, that he'd saved her from the painting. But he still didn't believe her and even challenged her to try and find him. Deeply hurt by his words, the fox said she would definitely find him, no matter what corner of the earth he ran to. And when she did, she'd be taking back her magical orb. You can't really blame Ti-Woong, though, because who would believe such a crazy story? Besides, he was an art school student, acting major, about to hit it big, or so he thought. So, he just wanted to focus on his up-and-coming career. Trying to escape the fox, he went back to the school to bum around. By chance, his friend saw a huge scar on his back, one that he didn't even feel any pain from. In that moment, he remembered that the scar might have been from his fall down the mountain. So, was it really true that the fox had saved him by giving him her magical orb? When he was alone in the room, some unseen force made the basketballs suddenly start rolling toward him on their own. The fox appeared in front of him, making him freeze in his tracks. Today was the full moon, the perfect opportunity for the fox to absorb spiritual energy and transform. Surprised, Grandma, the nine-tailed fox revealed her true form and then kissed him to take back her magical orb. Ti-Woong collapsed, barely breathing, because his life had been sustained by that very magical orb. Now that he'd lost it, his soul would be history in no time. The fox said that she saved his life, but he abandoned her, so now she didn't care what happened to him. She was about to leave, but then she remembered that he'd come back to save her from the wild boar. So, to repay the favor, she gave him her magical orb again. Ti-Woong woke up and immediately tried to run away. But what he imagined was very different from reality. None of his plans worked. The fox just had to sit there and look at him, and he'd be scared out of his mind. Just then, his grandfather called. Thinking his savior had arrived, he ended up dropping his phone. The fox casually answered it for him. The voice on the other end asked, "Where's Ti-Woong?" The fox looked at his situation and answered, "He's on top of me." Hearing that, his grandfather's hands and feet went numb, and he nearly had a stroke. What the hell is that good-for-nothing grandson doing to some innocent girl? Ti-Woong just stayed up there. Eventually, the fox had to fly up and rescue him. But even at this point, Ti-Woong was still being stubborn, and he'd rather die than beg. The fox said, "If you beg, I'll definitely let you live." This guy changed his tune faster than an ex-girlfriend. He immediately knelt down and begged the fox to spare his life. From then on, he lived a life of servitude, following her around and waiting on her hand and foot. First, he had to feed her until she was full. Otherwise, she'd get desperate from hunger and turn around and eat him. When it was time for bed, Ti-Woong, out of fear, put on a full suit of armor. Even though it was hot as hell, he still tried to act like he was okay. The fox wondered, "Are you that scared of me?" But then she shrugged it off and decided to go lie down. It had been 500 years since she'd slept like this. In the middle of the night, when she woke up, he was sound asleep. The fox felt happy being around him. She'd stay by his side until his injuries were fully healed. The fox stood high up, admiring the city skyline. It was such a satisfying sight. After finding out about Ti-Woong's fling with the fox spirit, Maiho decided to freeze his credit cards. Ti-Woong took the fox out for a meat feast, and it was about to blow all the money in his wallet. Then she wanted apple wine too. Ti-Woong, though a little annoyed, still had to indulge her whims. When it rains, it pours. He put money in the vending machine, but the can didn't drop. He tried banging on the machine for a while with no luck. The fox, in a show of support, gave it a kick, and it tipped over, spewing out products left and right. Actually, buying a lot of drinks wouldn't have been a problem, because the fox could drink them all. But the issue was he didn't have enough money to pay, so he grabbed her hand and they took off running. He went to borrow money from some friends at school, but no one would lend him any. However, the fox could smell the money they were hiding. She told him he was being ripped off, but he didn't care and even voluntarily gave them all the money he had. Actually, this was the first time he'd ever had to borrow money, so he was extremely embarrassed. As soon as Ti-Woong left, she overheard them saying that he was the easiest mark in the whole department. As a result, the fox, wanting to avenge Ti-Woong, gave that guy a face full of basketballs. The level of damage was so high that the poor dude had to be loaded onto a stretcher and rushed to the hospital. While he'd managed to trick the fox into waiting outside, Ti-Woong went into the library by himself to look up records about fox spirits. By chance, he found a recent news article about a fox spirit disappearing from a painting. He realized that what she'd been saying wasn't entirely crazy. Remembering the time he accidentally dabbed a small ink stain on the fox spirit's shoulder, to verify whether or not she was the same fox spirit, he brought her into a closed room. When he pulled down her sleeve, sure enough, there was a black mole on her shoulder, exactly like the ink mark he'd drawn on the fox in the painting. Now Ti-Woong was ready to believe what she said. Unintentionally, his friends saw the two of them being intimate in the closed room. The girl with the glasses who had a long-time crush on him got jealous and stormed off. The other friend, however, was very impressed that Ti-Woong, who usually seemed so clueless, had managed to snag such a beautiful girl. After being discovered, he had no choice but to introduce her to his friends. For convenience, he named the fox Mi-ho. This was the first time she'd ever been given a name, and she was so happy that she was practically squinting. But this joy didn't last long, because the sorcerer had tracked them down. The sorcerer called and tricked Ti-Woong into picking up a package, the purpose of which was to find out who the fox spirit was so he could easily approach her. However, at this time, the fox saw a chicken and was determined to chase after it, forcing the sorcerer to run his butt off to keep up. As soon as she arrived, he pulled out a dagger. But then he looked closely at the fox's face. Why hadn't she changed at all? He'd killed her with his own hands a long time ago. He painfully recalled the past. That night, Ti-Woong intentionally got Mi-ho drunk to try and find out if she had any secrets or weaknesses. He used every flattering word he could to get closer to her. At this point, loosened up by the alcohol, Mi-ho revealed that her weakness was water. Ti-Woong remembered this, just waiting for an opportunity. In the midst of all the fun, Mi-ho happily let loose and showed Ti-Woong all of her tails. But he still couldn't handle it and kept begging her to stop. The next day, Mi-ho started acting like his personal reminder. Early in the morning, before the rooster even crowed, she woke him up to take her out for beef. For lunch and dinner too, she insisted on eating beef and wouldn't have anything else. Because it was so expensive and he was getting tired of it, Ti-Woong suggested that he buy her chicken instead. But Mi-ho flipped out, flying up and kicking a potted plant. Seeing this, he had no choice but to keep eating beef. Because his grandfather had frozen his credit cards for so long, his finances had gradually dried up, and now he didn't even have money to buy meat. Reluctantly, he sneaked back into his grandfather's luxurious house and crept over to his grandfather's koi pond, intending to catch one to sell at the market. Unexpectedly, his dark intentions were discovered by his grandfather. Ti-Woong grabbed the bucket of fish and ran for his life, while his grandfather chased after him with a net. His grandfather even promised to reactivate his credit cards if he agreed to give back the fish. But the agreement fell through. Since his grandfather wanted to get the fish back so badly, it must be worth a lot. Why would he give it back? But karma came quickly. He ran into the street without looking and got hit by a car. At the hospital, his grandfather begged the doctors to quickly save the fish, and said that they didn't need to bother saving his good-for-nothing grandson. Being outside all the time wasn't a good plan either. Now, because he was stuck with Mi-ho, he was arguing with his grandfather and refusing to go home. Anyway, he'd never been one to listen to anyone. He explained to his grandfather that he couldn't live without her. His kind grandfather said, "Then bring her home. If it works out, I'll even arrange for you to get married." However, Ti-Woong said that he only wanted to live with her for a while and then send her away. Smack! A heavenly slap from his grandfather nearly knocked his jaw out of place. Hearing this, his grandfather couldn't stand this useless bastard any longer and angrily left. Even though she didn't understand what was going on, the person who always defended him couldn't cover for him this time. Unexpectedly, Mi-ho's appearance had caused him so many problems. Meanwhile, she was going around telling everyone that she was Ti-Woong's girlfriend. As a result, CR, who liked him, suddenly turned into a stranger. Hi-In, the girl he liked, also thought it was true. Ti-Woong's grandfather was still making every effort to bring his eldest grandson back, so he assigned Min-Suk to go to the school to investigate. Unfortunately, his grandson skipped class today. While she was trying to figure things out, Min-Suk had an accident that no one could have prevented. In that critical situation, only this uncle was quick to pick up on the damsel in distress signal. He became a hero, rescuing Min-Suk, which moved her so deeply that she was willing to do anything for him. After that fateful encounter, Min Suk began to long for the director. She inadvertently became Ti-woong's ally, supporting his continued residence on the school rooftop so she would have more opportunities to see the man of her dreams. As for Ti-woong, he was still under Mi-ho's thumb. Wherever he went, she trailed after him, like a shadow he couldn't shake off. On the bus, she saw a beef advertisement and was so hungry she licked her lips. "I'm starving," but Ti-woong ignored her, busy texting CR to apologize. She happened to see a little girl playing with her mother. "Sweetheart, let me nibble on you." Suddenly, the child turned around and gestured for Mi-ho to bite her as well. Without thinking, Mi-ho mimicked the mother's actions. Ti-woong, witnessing this, was horrified. He mistakenly believed she was completely out of her mind, to the point of wanting to eat people. He quickly dragged her off the bus. He then went to check his phone to see if Hye-in had replied, but frantically realized he'd forgotten it in his haste. Ti-woong was extremely worried, unsure if Hye-in had forgiven him. Without his phone, how could he find out? He went everywhere, asking to borrow a phone. Seeing Ti-woong's worry, Mi-ho immediately, and with lightning speed, chased after the bus, retrieved his phone, and brought it back to him. Reading the message and seeing that Hye-in had forgiven him, Ti-woong beamed as if he'd won the lottery. Mi-ho, thinking she was the reason for his joy, was also very happy. Seeing her tired, panting, and covered in sweat, Ti-woong asked what was wrong. He learned that it was because she was running out of the mystical orb, causing her physical strength to weaken. Ti-woong, not feeling any different, didn't realize how important that orb was. Suddenly, Mi-ho hugged him. In that moment, Ti-woong felt something magical, as if he were in a different time and space. Unexpectedly, she gave him the most precious thing she possessed. Therefore, he promised Mi-ho that he would protect and cherish it. That promise plunged his life into a dead end. He lay around the house, subject to the fox's control. He couldn't even hang out with his friends, and he even limited contact with his crush. As if speaking of the devil, Hye-in showed up at his door, proactively trying to seduce him, making affectionate gestures. Ultimately, unable to restrain himself, he almost fed her dog food, showed public displays of affection right there. Just then, Mi-ho materialized and caught Ti-woong betraying his promise. The fox pushed him against the wall and started strangling him, demanding the orb back. Ti-woong suddenly startled awake. It had all been a nightmare triggered by his fear. Mi-ho learned that if she collected 10 discount coupons, she could redeem them for a free order of chicken. She already had 8, so she only needed 2 more. She showed them to Ti-woong and immediately darted out into the street. Carelessly, she was hit by a car. However, the fox was fine and could stand up and walk. The driver of the car was Director Ban. Her strangeness captivated him, causing him to get out of his car and follow Mi-ho. Rummaging through a trash can, she found a coupon. But suddenly, a gust of wind blew it out of her hand. Thinking no one would see her at this hour, she used her magical powers to fly after it. She didn't know that Director Ban had been secretly watching her every move. He was utterly amazed. After she left, he inspected the scene. There were no props or supports anywhere. Being able to perform action scenes without special effects was his dream. At that moment, he decided he would find Mi-ho and cast her as the lead in an upcoming action film. But when he described the mysterious girl to his assistant, all she could think of was that it sounded like a ghost, not something so far-fetched. Before long, the director organized an audition for his action film. Coincidentally, Ti-woong was very interested in the lead male role in that movie. He devoted a lot of time and effort to auditioning. If he succeeded, he would not only fulfill his dream, but also earn a lot of money to buy meat for the fox. She stood obediently, listening to him ramble on about his promise. That day, his grandfather came looking for him and accidentally overheard those words. He couldn't believe that his grandson, who had clung to him since he was a child, had changed because of a girl, becoming thoughtful and willing to work hard to earn money. It seemed he could finally rest easy in his grave. Ti-woong took Mi-ho with him to the audition. On the way, they passed a river, and Mi-ho became scared and timid, because water was a weakness that drained her energy in an instant. Ti-woong suddenly pulled her close. Like this, you won't see the water, and you can feel safe. This moment caused a stir among the people around, who said they were a happy couple and found it kind of odd. Hearing this, Ti-woong suddenly felt embarrassed and pushed her away. His face was flushed, and he felt hot. He wanted a refreshing rain shower. Mi-ho then said, "If you want rain, you have to make me cry. I'll cry when I'm sad, creating fox rain, and I'm sad now, sad because my stomach is empty." Ti-woong thought, "I didn't bring an umbrella. I'll ruin this nice outfit if it rains." How am I going to audition? So, they stopped at a supermarket near the audition location. Here, there was a display full of meat, making the fox's stomach rumble even more. But Ti-Woong was now broke, so where would he get the money to buy meat? Therefore, he showed her how to eat samples at the tasting counters. Seeing the meat, Mi-ho's eyes lit up, and she started gobbling it up, going from one counter to the next, unaware that Ti-Woong had disappeared. Unexpectedly, the sorcerer had been secretly watching her all this time, and today he also appeared there. As Mi-ho was eating, she heard a man's voice ask, "Miss Fox, do you find the human world enjoyable?" Very quickly after that, the two met. Mi-ho touched the sorcerer's face and realized he wasn't human, and he confirmed that she wasn't the girl he had killed in the past. Perhaps because she no longer had the orb, Mi-ho couldn't sense the true identity of this man. The brief encounter ended with him saying, "Never trust the promises of humans." Meanwhile, Di-Woong was trying out cosmetics when he accidentally met his crush. She appeared with long hair and wearing a white dress, radiating a very captivating, innocent charm. However, he didn't know that the reason she had changed like this was because she had overheard the director saying he was looking for a long-haired girl in a white dress to play the lead role in the film. At this point, he still remembered his promise. He wouldn't get close to Hyen anymore in order to protect the orb inside him. So, he did everything he could to reject his crush and find a reason to leave. Hyen wandered around alone and accidentally came across Mi-ho standing and gnawing on a discarded leather jacket. Wanting to outdo Mi-ho, Hyen started a fight. She said, "Ti-Woong doesn't want to see you, Mi-ho. He's ditched you. So, have some self-respect and don't cling to him anymore." But using her sense of hearing and smell, Mi-ho was sure that Ti-Woong was looking for her everywhere. Suddenly, Mi-ho pointed behind Hyen and Ti-Woong was really standing there. Hyen was angry because she had been embarrassed, so she lunged forward, accidentally tripping and falling. Ti-Woong, seeing this, rushed over. She blamed everything on Mi-ho and then played the victim. "My dress is ruined. How am I supposed to audition?" Ti-Woong frantically ran everywhere to find an identical dress for Hyen, even using all his remaining money. But at this point, Hyen was already confidently auditioning in another dress. When Ti-Woong arrived, the casting was over, meaning his dream was also gone. Ti-Woong was extremely disappointed. But he wasn't even angry at Hyen. He blamed it all on Mi-ho. He felt that she was truly a jinx, ruining his life. Ti-Woong took Mi-ho on a cruise ship. At first, she was very scared, but because it was something Ti-Woong liked, she agreed to go along with it. There was a lot of food around, so she could take the opportunity to pass the time with it. While waiting for him to return, after a while, the ship's horn suddenly blared. The boat slowly left the dock, moving out into the vast expanse of water. Mi-ho frantically called out Ti-Woong's name, but the more she called, the more she saw him running away, leaving her behind. Mi-ho curled up in a corner, embracing her disappointment. Ti-Woong had broken his promise and abandoned her for the first time after 500 years of imprisonment. She was so sad that she started to cry. Her tears formed a downpour. Ti-Woong, who was running, suddenly stopped when he felt the rain. He remembered the fox had once said that if it was sunny and then it rained, it was because she was sad. On the cruise ship, because she was surrounded by water, the fox's spirit weakened, and without the orb nearby, she could no longer maintain her human form. Her changing eyes made a child who came close see her and burst into tears. She hurriedly ran into the bathroom, hiding from everyone, but they chased after her, continuously banging on the door, demanding an explanation for why she had scared the little boy. In a daze, Mi-ho didn't know how to escape this terrible place. Ti-Woong had run there, waited for the ship to dock, and then went to look for Mi-ho under the table. He saw a tail sticking out. He slowly went closer to see if it was Mi-ho. But the owner of the dog came and dragged it away. He overheard people talking in the bathroom, saying there was a very scary girl, who looked like a monster. He quickly ran to the door and called out her name. Mi-ho recognized Ti-Woong's familiar voice and finally opened the door. Seeing her transformed into a fox, he almost gasped in surprise, but he managed to restrain himself. He pushed aside his fear, carefully covered Mi-ho with a blanket, and led her away. As soon as he got her off the cruise ship, people chased after them, demanding the blanket back. Instinctively, he hugged her tightly to protect her. Thanks to absorbing the energy of the orb, Mi-ho returned to her normal form. It turned out that Ti-Woong's existence was that important to Mi-ho. She also took this opportunity to hug him a little longer. She liked this feeling. At home at this time, his grandfather had also just finished packing a suitcase of clothes for Min-suk to take to Ti-Woong at school. He thought his grandson had become independent because of his girlfriend, so of course he had to support them. Min-suk also took this opportunity to approach the director. She brought a lunchbox, waiting for him to appear. Unexpectedly, because she had stayed up all night making the lunch, she couldn't resist the drowsiness when the director arrived. At the place where he saw her sleeping in the sunlight, Uncle once again sacrificed his old body, opening his shirt and standing to block the sunlight from shining on Min-suk, to the point of sweating like he had taken a shower. He tried to maintain the pose. When the sun became gentler, he finally left feeling relieved. Min-suk suddenly woke up. She had no idea she had just experienced the sweetness she had yearned for. The director returned to the dumpster site, hoping to meet the high-skilled martial arts girl from the previous day. That night, Mi-ho was walking with Tae-woong and admiring his martial arts skills. His passion to become an outstanding Hollywood actor in the action genre had never faded. He imagined assassins, opponents, and then performed moves. Mi-ho admired him, so she later imitated his every word and action. Tae-woong said a sentence, and she repeated a sentence. He kicked his foot against the wall, and she also kicked it. But unexpectedly, her strength was so great that it caused the wall to crack. As they were running away, the director appeared. Because he couldn't find the bathroom, he chose that wall as the place to relieve himself. Tae-woong covered Mi-ho's eyes, not letting her see, and felt very uneasy in his heart. Unexpectedly, the power of that water gun collapsed the wall. Appearing before the director was an old woman watering plants. The result of the night's watering was that the director was taken to the police station. They accused him of collapsing the wall and pulling down his pants in front of women. Accidentally, from a famous director, he was now labeled a pervert. He couldn't accept it. Tae-woong felt a pang of conscience and stood up to testify for the director. Thanks to the witness, the director was released. He strictly forbade Tae-woong from revealing this secret to anyone and promised to give him an audition opportunity. Tae-woong secretly thanked heaven and earth. Truly, heaven did not disappoint good people. As soon as he left the police station, he saw Mi-ho sitting, rummaging through a dumpster, eating, and wiping her hands on her dress, looking tattered and dirty. He took her shopping and also taught her how to brush her teeth and wash up properly. This girl was experiencing human modern civilization for the first time, so she was still bewildered. Drinking water, brushing teeth, and eating milk foam, she praised everything, even taking a bath. After changing into new clothes, she looked more like a human now. Suddenly, Tae-woong asked her, "When can you take the orb out?" Mi-ho immediately avoided answering and soon fell asleep. She didn't even want to eat meat anymore. Actually, he was fine, but she didn't want to take it back. The next day, Tae-woong received a call from the director, inviting him to audition. Mi-ho was afraid of messing things up for him again, so she decided to stay home and wait for him to return. Seeing her like this, Tae-woong was half happy and half uneasy. After instructing her in every detail, he promised to buy her meat if things went well. Mi-ho was home alone, bored and with nothing to do, so she went back to rummaging through the trash. Finally, she found the 10th coupon needed to redeem a free piece of chicken. Unexpectedly, the old landlady from the collapsing wall incident the other day wouldn't let Mi-ho have the coupon. They had a tug of war for a while, and the landlady, unable to withstand it, had to give in. On her way home, skipping happily, a car suddenly stopped right in front of Mi-ho. It turned out to be the mysterious priest, who had come to propose something important. Tae-woong's casting audition went quite smoothly. He didn't have to do anything to get the director to hire him for the film crew. Hye-in, knowing this, suggested they go out to celebrate, but he refused, remembering his promise. If he succeeded, he would buy meat and treat Mi-ho to a feast. Meanwhile, the priest took Mi-ho to his house and revealed, if she wanted to become a human, she had to be killed by this sword, or she could drink his blood and die slowly. Afterward, a human would have to voluntarily transfer their elixir energy to help her resurrect. Mi-ho wondered why he was telling her this secret. He said it was because she reminded him of a girl named Kin-dan from the past. She, like her, longed to live as a normal person on Earth. He also warned Mi-ho before she left. If no human was willing to carry the elixir within 100 days and transfer their energy to her, she would have to obediently return to the painting, as fate had decreed. Tae-woong was in a good mood, so he stopped by his grandfather's house to chat and ask for some meat to take home. That way, he wouldn't have to buy any. Mi-ho held the priest's blood vial in her hand, with a heavy heart, her mind wandering and thinking about her future. While strolling back to her room, she was accidentally spotted by Director Ban. This was indeed the target for the female lead he was looking for. He couldn't miss this opportunity. Director Ban immediately got out of his car and approached Mi-ho, but Mi-ho, afraid of strangers, ran away, leaving him unable to catch up. Unexpectedly, Hye-in was also there. After learning that Mi-ho was not only her rival in love, but also her competition for the lead role in the film, she planned to make Tae-woong leave Mi-ho. That way, Mi-ho would no longer have a chance to appear before the director. Hye-in used their romantic feelings to give Tae-woong an ultimatum. Between the two of them, he could only choose one. That night, Tae-woong brought a bag of meat home for Mi-ho and left to go drinking without saying a word. This made Mi-ho wait all night, so anxious that she couldn't even eat the meat. Thinking that they would have grilled meat together when Tae-woong came home, he instead returned drunk and said something that broke Mi-ho's heart. Because she had agreed to be his friend, she should do him one favor. Please go away. I really can't take it anymore. Please, just disappear from my sight. After hearing him say these words, Mi-ho gently placed Tae-woong's arm down, whispering that she agreed to leave so he wouldn't have to suffer anymore. The next day, Tae-woong woke up completely exhausted. As a habit, he called out Mi-ho's name but received no response. He searched every nook and cranny on the university rooftop, but he couldn't find the fox spirit anywhere. Could she have taken back the elixir already? Could she really have left? Tae-woong suddenly covered his face, tears welling up in his eyes. Finally, he was free from the fox spirit's burden. According to the party and the state's doctrine, there is nothing more precious than independence and freedom. He hurried to gather his clothes and move out of here before Mi-ho changed her mind and came back. While walking down the street, a sudden downpour began, even though the sun was shining brightly. Tae-woong stopped and thought, could this be Mi-ho's tears? But when he looked to the side, he realized it was because the neighbor had just bought a new car and was washing it. He really knew how to create karma. Tae-woong tried to reassure himself to cover up his worries about Mi-ho. He walked ahead. After a few more steps, another drop of water fell on his face. Tae-woong turned around to scold him, but the neighbor had disappeared. At this moment, Mi-ho hid in the bushes, observing Tae-woong one last time and trying hard not to cry. The grandfather was terrified when he saw Tae-woong packing his bags and coming home, fearing his blood pressure would drop. Did his girlfriend leave him again? Is he going to whine to me about it? Ignoring his grandfather's worries, Tae-woong checked his phone and remembered his date with Hye-in, so he hurried to meet her. Just a few sweet words from Hye-in, and Tae-woong forgot how angry he had been with her. Suddenly, mentioning Mi-ho made him feel a little guilty. Drinking apple juice, he also remembered her favorite drink. He wondered where Mi-ho was now, if she was still rummaging through the trash. That night, the university security guard discovered a problem with the vending machine. All the apple juice that had just been stocked in the machine had suddenly disappeared. Hearing noises nearby, the guard ran over and saw cans scattered all over the floor. One by one, the cans rolled down the stairs. He looked up and saw Mi-ho in a white dress, with long hair flowing down, and was terrified. With no Tae-woong to spend time with, the fox spirit was so bored that she had nothing to do, so she wandered around the university, scaring students. Later, she even took the slice of meat from between the 3 female students' bread. They looked at the empty bread and understood it was the work of a fox spirit. Happily munching on 3 slices of meat at the same time, she noticed someone was watching her. She quickly swallowed it and ran away as fast as she could. Unexpectedly, the priest had anticipated her move and gave her a palm strike, causing her to vomit the elixir. Everywhere Tae-woong went, people asked about Mi-ho, making him feel a little guilty. He bought some food and went to the university rooftop to visit her, but there was no sign of anyone. Suddenly, he felt empty and strangely uncomfortable. After taking her home, the priest put the fox elixir into a blue jar, placed it next to the jar of his blood, and gave her 2 choices. If she wanted to become human, she should drink the red jar. But if she chose to drink the blue jar, she would have to return to the temple because this was a veterinary clinic. While waiting to make a decision, the priest allowed Mi-ho to stay. At this time, thanks to Hye-in's recommendation, Tae-woong was invited by an entertainment company to become a brand ambassador. Not only that, but he also officially signed a contract to play the male lead in an action martial arts movie produced by director Ban. Although he hadn't received a single penny of salary, he still allowed himself to become luxurious and chose the most expensive car in the showroom. When his friends asked where he got the money to buy it, Tae-woong retorted fiercely, "What's the point of having a rich grandfather?" Unfortunately, just as he stepped out of the store, less than 3 seconds later, he was rear-ended by a reckless driver. At the clinic, the doctor discovered that he had an old and quite severe injury. Although it had healed, it was still recovering, so he shouldn't exercise vigorously and should rest for a few months to recover. So what about the movie he just signed up for? Meanwhile, Mi-ho was pampered in the priest's care. She didn't have to rummage through trash cans for food like she did when she was with Tae-woong. There were always dog bones available to chew on. However, they were just fake bones, and the bones didn't satisfy her craving for meat. My-ho discovered that the priest had a lot of money. That was enough for her to eat a sumptuous meal of meat. But in the end, she decided to put it back in its place, gambling on going out for a lavish meal. She ordered 10 huge bowls of ribs. The owner had never seen a girl with such a huge appetite and praised her endlessly. "Wait a minute, do you have enough money to pay?" My-ho didn't have a single penny in her pocket. Because she was pretty, she was given free food. What? So she rolled up her sleeves and agreed to wash dishes to pay off the debt. She told herself that because she was human, she would also do things the human way. In the blink of an eye, the pile of dishes was washed clean. If the young dreamers saw this, they would like it, let alone the restaurant owner. He wanted to hire her immediately. Without Ti-woong around to provide for her, she had to fend for herself to buy the things she liked. Although it was a bit difficult because she had to use her brain and exert her strength, she could still do it on her own. Ti-woong returned, rummaging through the room on the university rooftop to find traces of My-ho, but was disappointed because he didn't find anything. He still didn't understand why she left without saying goodbye. They had promised to be friends. At this point, he suddenly remembered that it was because they were friends that he had asked her to disappear. Ti-woong suddenly felt extremely guilty. In contrast to Ti-woong's indifference, his aunt Min-suk was immersed in her love for the director. She dressed beautifully and was obsessed with choosing the style to appear in front of him. While applying lipstick, she accidentally kissed the butt of a plaster statue. As she panicked out of embarrassment, the director appeared like a hero once again, saving her. He tore off the medicated patch on his body and put it on the statue's butt. Taking this opportunity, she invited him for a drink and confessed her feelings. However, the director thought Min-suk was already married, so he said hurtful words of rejection. As a result, Min-suk cried like rain, drove home, and became depressed. While the director was saddened by this situation, he met Ti-woong, and he became increasingly worried about his fateful role. Losing it would mean losing everything, so he tried to meet the director and asked to move all his action scenes to the last day. However, the director thought he was joking. He said that he saw the enthusiasm of My-ho's age from his eyes, just like he was when he was young. Therefore, tomorrow we will start working right away. After finishing, the director also asked him to wash the butt of the statue, saying that he shouldn't say anything, fearing she would be embarrassed. Ti-woong was bewildered. He didn't have any aunt. At this time, the director was shocked to realize that she was still single. There was no other way. Ti-woong could only return to the university rooftop to beg My-ho for help. Unexpectedly, he saw her there. He ran over happily, saying that he had been looking for her everywhere. But in reality, his words and actions of concern for My-ho all stemmed from Ti-woong wanting to exploit the power of the elixir. With it, he could participate in filming without any worries. My-ho was even happier because she thought Ti-woong had returned to find her. He was a reliable person for her to entrust the elixir to for 100 days. But currently the elixir was being kept by the priest, so she had to wait for her to return to get the elixir back and then give it to Ti-woong. At this time, the priest was personally preparing a meal of delicious meat, waiting for My-ho to return. But when he met her again, she only mentioned completely trusting Ti-woong to give him the elixir. Knowing he couldn't stop her, the priest could only tell her to think carefully. If Ti-woong loved another girl or ran away, she would turn into smoke and dissipate. At the time when My-ho was struggling between emotions and reason, Ti-woong was happily preparing for a date with Hye-in. He bought matching couple rings to propose, but he only bought My-ho a chicken drumstick-shaped pillow. As soon as he met Hye-in, before he could even give her the ring box, she scolded him like splashing water on his face. It turned out that because she knew he had become the male lead in the movie, she had recommended him to the company. Now he was using the excuse of an injury, so he could no longer participate, and everyone would think she was using her romantic relationship to promote a new actor. Hearing this, Ti-woong immediately withdrew the ring box and decided to hide it. He thought she was worried about his health, but she wasn't. She was worried about her own reputation. When My-ho brought the elixir back, she made Ti-woong promise not to date any girls and not to leave her for so long for 100 days. But how could Ti-woong endure that? He didn't understand how she could think that a nine-tailed fox would be his girlfriend. That was terrible. Seeing his fierce reaction, My-ho knew it was useless to force him. Maybe this time, she should return to the temple to cultivate for another 500 years. This time she left, she probably wouldn't be able to return and see him again. Suddenly, Ti-woong felt a pang of conscience. He said frankly that he had been good to her all along just to trick her into giving him the elixir. My-ho knew that, but still happily accepted it. At this time, he put the ring he intended to give Hye-in on Mi-ho's finger. From this moment on, she had become his girlfriend. Mi-ho was overjoyed because that was all she wanted when she came down to earth. That night, Ti-woong drank the immortality elixir, while she sat beside him and drank the sorcerer's blood. There was something the sorcerer had hidden, not revealing it to Mi-ho. After 100 days, the elixir would absorb all of a person's energy. Therefore, when she swallowed the elixir, she would turn into a human. As for Ti-woong, losing the elixir would mean death. Now that she was his girlfriend, Mi-ho ambitiously wanted to go further. She asked to do what she had always dreamed of. She disguised herself and appeared before Ti-woong, inviting him to play the game of having a wedding ceremony. After that, she invited him to mate. Ti-woong openly showed his disgust, saying it was animalistic language. He would rather vomit the elixir back up than mate with a fox. The more Mi-ho pursued him, the more Ti-woong feared and avoided her. In the middle of the night, he suddenly heard a strange noise. Fearfully investigating, he discovered she was sitting and crying intensely. It turned out the rosy cheeks drawn with eyeliner couldn't be removed, so they were stuck on her face. It burdened Ti-woong to find every way possible to help her clean her face. When it was all done, he even gave her a giant, oversized chicken leg plushie as a gift. Mi-ho looked unusually happy, worrying all her friends. Ti-woong, due to the traumatic shock, lost his debut role. Unexpectedly, when they met again, he had abundant energy and outstanding acting skills, earning praise from everyone. Not only that, but they also noticed the matching rings he wore on his hand. Strangely, from the day Mi-ho wore her matching ring, she suddenly attracted the attention of the opposite sex wherever she went. Ti-woong initially pretended, poor them, who would fall for a fox. But later, when he saw someone trying to approach her, he raised the ring on his hand, asserting his claim over Mi-ho and chasing them away. To lessen the embarrassment, he explained with the reason that he was a hero, so he had to protect her. When a member of the opposite sex approached Ti-woong and tried to get to know him, Mi-ho also raised her hand wearing the ring, doing the same thing. Anyone who looked at them would think they were a happy couple, unaware that between them was just a 100-day-long agreement. Seeing Mi-ho getting carried away more and more, afraid that she would misunderstand the couple thing was real, he had to remind her. Accidentally, he blurted out that the ring was supposed to be Hye-in's. Mi-ho still endured the hurt. She was just sad, not daring to be angry, still choosing to follow Ti-woong around. Ti-woong went into the school, while Mi-ho had to wait outside. Seeing Mi-ho looking pitiful, Ti-woong bestowed upon her some leftover affection and brought her into the school. It was Mi-ho's first time going to school, and she was very excited. As for Ti-woong, the lecturer was no different from a sleep-inducing doctor. He planned to go out and buy some coffee to drink, in case he fell asleep in class. He'd be embarrassed in front of Mi-ho. Unexpectedly, he accidentally met Hye-in again. He hurriedly took off the ring and threw it away, but Hye-in's purpose for coming was also to confirm whether he was wearing matching rings as rumored. Seeing that none of the fingers on his two hands had a ring, she was overjoyed. Hye-in took the opportunity to say sweet words before leaving. As soon as she left, Ti-woong frantically looked for the ring again. But alas, it had flown too far, and there was no way to retrieve it. Hye-in was happy because Ti-woong still had feelings for her. To reciprocate, she personally brought pastries to the class to support him. Fortunately, he discovered it in time, so he dragged her outside before she and Mi-ho could see each other. Because he couldn't refuse the CR's invitation to eat, he agreed to abandon Mi-ho at school. That afternoon, the director dropped by the school. Mi-ho accidentally saw him and immediately switched to running mode. Because before, Ti-woong had told her to stay away from this uncle. The director excitedly said, "This is the action-oriented female lead I've been looking for." He drove his car after her, and Mi-ho ran even faster. At first, she hid behind a wall. When she realized her health was starting to have problems, she rushed to find the sorcerer. Describing the painful feeling she had just experienced, he replied that it was just a normal human feeling. Later, she would feel even more pain. Seeing that she was almost human, Mi-ho immediately became happy again. Ti-woong, abandoning Mi-ho alone at school, also felt uneasy and worried. He tried to eat quickly to finish the meal as fast as possible and return to her. But alas, when he ran frantically back, she was nowhere to be found. Ti-woong thought he was wrong for abandoning Mi-ho, so he prepared a feast of meat and alcohol to wait for her return. Unexpectedly, she was brought home by a strange man, and they were laughing and talking very intimately. Apparently, they had just eaten expensive beef together. When Mi-ho returned to Ti-woong, he became sulky with her. Looks like the guy was getting jealous. But at that moment, Mi-ho noticed the ring on his hand was gone. So, the two of them went rummaging around the university in the middle of the night. My Ho single-handedly lifted a water dispenser, from which Ti Woong retrieved the ring. In contrast to Ti Woong's delight, My Ho angrily asked why the ring was there. Ti Woong intended to keep lying to her, but this time it wasn't so easy. My Ho kept asking why it fell there, forcing Ti Woong to confess that it was because he was afraid Hai-in would see it. At this point, My Ho realized that he abandoned her today to go on a date with that girl. He also wanted to hide her from her, just like he hid the ring. Ti Woong still weaseled out of it, saying, "You said you would do anything I wanted, so now what I want is to hide you from Hai-in." My Ho said she wanted something different. Ti Woong didn't hesitate to reply. What else would a human want from a fox spirit? My Ho was heartbroken. Now, she realized that the elixir was the only thing he wanted from her, while he took it for granted. Ti Woong turning his back said it all. That night, My Ho was sad, so she drank a lot of alcohol. She excitedly revealed all 9 of her tales, but when she met Ti Woong, she was captivated by his charm again. She would do anything he said. While the two were having fun, Hai-in heard that the director had seen the female lead he was looking for on the rooftop of the acting department. So, she quickly went there. My Ho smelled Hai-in approaching. She suddenly climbed onto the railing and said, "I can do anything you want because I like you, so now I'll run away so Hai-in can see." With that, My Ho suddenly jumped off the rooftop right in front of Ti Woong, causing him to panic and rush to find her, ignoring Hai-in's presence. When he got down below, he breathed a sigh of relief because My Ho was safe. For a moment, he forgot that she wasn't a human, so nothing could happen to her. But her hand was torn and bleeding. Suddenly, Ti Woong felt that this girl was really pitiful. He grabbed My Ho's hand tightly, preventing her from leaving. From now on, she didn't need to run away anymore. Ti Woong mustered all his courage to admit to the girl he had liked for so long, "From now on, My Ho is my girlfriend, so I have to be there to protect her." This time, he accepted watching Hai-in walk away without chasing after her. Ti Woong went inside and sat blankly. It wasn't what he wanted to say to his CR, but he had already promised My Ho. 100 days wasn't too long, but being with a girl he didn't like was really torture for Ti Woong. He wasn't usually someone who kept his promises, but this time it was so different. Looking at the ring on her hand, he still regretted that Hai-in wasn't the one wearing it. He sat wondering whether he should put the ring back on or not. Suddenly, he realized it had been raining for a while and he wasn't wet. It turned out that My Ho had been holding up a sign as a shelter for him. That image made Ti Woong immediately decide to put the ring on his hand. Then they went back to the room together under the sign. He treated My Ho's wound. Then the two of them used super glue to fix the broken sign. At that moment, they suddenly heard a noise and ran outside to see what was happening. Min Suk was dragging a drunk man. They were surprised to realize it was the director. Min Suk dragged him up to the room and accidentally got stuck in the super glue, causing her butt to stick to the floor. This was a real disaster. Unable to lift her butt, Min Suk had to resort to a desperate measure, leaving her pants behind and wearing the director's jacket, fleeing home. The next morning, Director Ban didn't understand why he was here, so he went to find Ti Woong. At this moment, My Ho was enjoying a sweet moment with him, so she had to put aside her annoyance and hide. In anger, she physically impacted the wall, causing the sign to fall down. Thanks to this, Director Ban remembered everything from last night. He shyly asked Ti Woong for Min Suk's phone number. In addition, to fill My Ho's free time, Ti Woong gave her the position of manager of the martial arts acting department. Her job was to clean the classrooms and the schoolyard every day. However, My Ho was very happy and proud to be assigned the task by Ti Woong. She even told the sorcerer about this. Then, she asked him if someone different like her could live happily with humans in this world. The sorcerer didn't answer, but just gave her a book called The Little Mermaid. You should read and find out the answer yourself. It will be in the ending of this book. Since being assigned the task of managing the department, My Ho had worked very hard. By chance, the grandfather came to the department, looking for Ti Woong and saw her, and fell in love with her. Just as the sign fell down, luckily My Ho quickly rushed to block the sign, saving him from danger. He invited her to drink water, but she saved it for Ti Woong. Unexpectedly, there was a girl in this world who was beautiful, talented, and considerate. The grandfather was very pleased with this girl, so Ti Woong enjoyed the joy of it. He let him use his credit card and car again, supporting him to continue his acting career to earn money to take care of his future granddaughter-in-law. With money, Ti Woong started to follow his old ways, going shopping freely. He swiped his card on everything he touched. But when he was chosen a promotional gift, he remembered My Ho and chose a keychain as a gift for My Ho. Then he bought her a phone as a reward because she had cleaned so well. When he got back, before he could even reveal his gift, Mi-ho excitedly showed him the book the sorcerer had given her. Jealousy got the better of him, and he hid the phone away. Meanwhile, after some time, the two older adults automatically contacted each other again. The purpose of this meeting wasn't to date, but for Min-suk to return the director's jacket, and for him to return her glue-covered pan. Embarrassed by the scandalous affair, Min-suk ran away and bumped into a restaurant employee. The spilled water stained her clothes. Flustered and surprised, Min-suk was once again saved by Director Ban, who draped his legendary jacket over her. Before she could thank him, Min-suk saw that the director was covered in patches of pain relief balm. She asked him worriedly and learned that it wasn't because he was sick, but because she liked the smell of the balm, so he covered himself in it for her. And so, their love story began, full of cold-related affections. Ti-woong was still harboring jealousy, so he used the Little Mermaid book as a pad under a frying pan. Mi-ho saw it and was a little worried, but then she wasn't angry. Instead, she was excited to smell the meat on the book. She even praised Ti-woong as high-quality beef, surpassing the sorcerer. He even let her know where he hid the gift for her. Mi-ho ran into her house, heard the phone ringing, and went to the bedside. Seeing the phone and the elixir-shaped keychain he bought for her, she was almost moved to tears. She quickly ran out and hugged him tightly. She was happy that he treated her like a human. This moment made Ti-woong fly. The next day, when Mi-ho woke up and couldn't find the last page, she threw a fit. He'd made up that the mermaid defeated the witch, married the prince, and they lived happily ever after. That perfect ending was exactly what Mi-ho wanted to hear. She immediately went to brag to the sorcerer that she wanted to be like that too. The sorcerer thought to himself that Ti-woong was considerate of her. Afterward, he gave Mi-ho tips for her first date, because she had a movie date with Ti-woong that night. On her way home, she suddenly heard the chicken vendor crying. Some thugs had eaten without paying and were causing trouble, smashing up her stall. Mi-ho quickly showed up. She just needed to give them a little lesson, and they immediately obediently paid. Hearing that Mi-ho had a date tonight, the chicken vendor took her to get her hair done and get dressed up as a thank you. Then, she went to the movie theater with Ti-woong. She thought it would be a private date like other couples, but he'd invited two friends along. While he was away, Director Ban's daughter saw Ti-woong give Mi-ho a phone and borrowed it to snoop. Mi-ho proudly showed off that she'd used The Little Mermaid as her phone's wallpaper because she wanted an ending like hers. That surprised Director Ban's daughter. Why would you want to be like the Little Mermaid? Because in the end, she dies. Mi-ho didn't believe her, so she went to the bookstore herself to check. Ti-woong came back and couldn't find her, so he went downstairs to look and coincidentally ran into Hye-in again. They stood talking for a while about the movie they were about to film. Mi-ho, holding the book, stood watching them but didn't call out. It turned out, Mi-ho now knew the ending was that the Little Mermaid would disappear. He had lied. At this point, Ti-woong left Hye-in alone to run to Mi-ho and tell her she didn't need to believe anyone, just to believe him. The Little Mermaid really did live happily ever after. Just one sentence from him, and she immediately cheered up. Mi-ho watched the other couples and copied them, doing everything she could to get close and intimate with Ti-woong. But he didn't pay attention and thought that teacher Dong-ju had corrupted her too much. He thought of today not as a date but just a walk. Then he grabbed the bag and dragged Mi-ho along like a pet. At home, passing by a camera advertisement, he said he really liked it. Mi-ho thought to herself that anything he liked, she would buy. However, Mi-ho still naively believed everything Ti-woong said. He tricked her into thinking the hair straightener was a meat press, and the scale was an age predictor. Seeing the vacuum cleaner, he stuck his hand inside, causing Mi-ho so much worry that she broke the machine. For Ti-woong, she could do anything, no matter how silly it was. As a result, the joke went a little too far, and he had to buy the vacuum cleaner. At this moment, Ti-woong saw Mi-ho happily playing with the electric fan. Who would believe that this innocent-looking girl is a cannibal? Involuntarily, his heart began to race. Ti-woong carried this strange feeling all the way home. He kept staring at Mi-ho, lost in thought. Because she was always so adorable, he couldn't tell if she was a human or a Gumiho nine-tailed fox anymore. Luckily, when Mi-ho used beef bones to curl her hair, he snapped back to reality. He repeatedly reminded himself, Mi-ho is a nine-tailed fox, to keep himself grounded. Mi-ho saw Ti-woong preparing a large chart to hang on the wall. As he crossed off another box, counting down the 100 days until he could escape Mi-ho, he even said, "Compared to you eating me, the fact that you like me is much scarier." This made Mi-ho very sad. She went to see a shaman and asked how she could make Ti-woong want to be with her. He said that humans really like money, while she didn't have any. And to have money, you need a job and work skills. But she was different from them. She was extraordinary. Why would you want to become a useless human? This time, hearing him say these strange things, Mi-ho even thought the shaman was sick. The moment she placed her hand on his face and gave him brotherly water, the shaman suddenly felt flustered. In the past, the person he loved was Lady Kin Dan, who willingly died at his hands for a mortal man. That image still haunted the shaman every night to this day. To become someone valuable, Mi-ho independently looked for a job. She became busy because she was always struggling to scrub barbecue grills, so busy that she couldn't talk on the phone with Ti-woong for long. Waiting all night for her to come home, he seemed restless and uneasy. Alone at home, he was extremely bored because he had gotten used to having her tail presence beside him, to the point that he even dreamed that Mi-ho went to the shaman's house and would leave him. That day, Mi-ho was invited by the chicken vendor to work as an actress in an advertisement for a famous beef company. True to her specialty, she ate in a very natural way. The series of commercials was shown on TV, so Ti-woong also saw it. He was annoyed because he thought that he had been losing sleep and skipping meals worrying about her these past few days, while she was out having fun. Ti-woong stormed home, scolding her for having so much fun with other people that she didn't even bother to pay attention to him. Mi-ho then said that besides going to film the advertisement, she was also busy washing barbecue grills. Ti-woong was surprised that someone with no ambition like her would suddenly go out and earn money just to buy something he liked. Ti-woong almost felt like crying, thinking that she was buying him a handheld camera. But no, Mi-ho used all her wages to buy a poster advertisement of the camera. Unexpected, right? Oh my god. When he found out that Mi-ho was being exploited, he took her to the restaurant where she worked to demand justice. As a result, he helped her recover a fair amount of back pay. Hye-in went to buy a camera and bought one for Ti-woong as well. Accidentally meeting Min-suk, Hye-in took this opportunity to badmouth Mi-ho, saying that she was clinging to Ti-woong for money. He was injured, and if he continued to film action movies, it could lead to disability. But because he was forced by Mi-ho, Ti-woong was trying hard to participate. Min-suk immediately reported back to his grandfather. Not long after, Mi-ho received a package at home, with the sender's name listed as Hye-in. She curiously opened it and found that the gift was the handheld video camera that Ti-woong liked very much. Now she knew how foolish she had been for not buying it but bringing home the advertisement instead. That day, Ti-woong tried for the first time to buy something other than meat, and that was flowers for her. However, he saw the poster thrown out in the trash can. He hurriedly carried it up to the room and saw the camera box on the table. He understood why the gift she had given him was thrown away like that. Ti-woong brought the bouquet of flowers to coax Mi-ho. Unexpectedly, she seemed to like them even more than being given meat. It turned out that she wasn't as different as he thought. She also knew how to be sad, how to be angry, and also liked flowers like other girls. It was just that he had looked at her too differently. Before that, he was afraid that being too intimate with a fox was abnormal, so he drew a line between the two of them. But now he wanted to erase that boundary so they could both have more time to get to know each other. Mi-ho, overly excited, asked Ti-woong, "Even though you and I are different, is it too difficult for you to like me?" While she was waiting for an answer, Ti-woong was about to answer her question when Grandpa suddenly burst through the door. He forced them to break up because he was worried about her. His grandson's injuries hadn't healed, and he was already filming dangerous action scenes. Ti-woong admitted to him that he had been injured, but as long as he was with Mi-ho, it didn't matter. So it was clear, that girl had really made his grandson lose his mind or something. Grandpa used the trick of pretending to faint to lure Ti-woong back. Today was the full moon, so the moon was very round and bright. For humans, it might be a beautiful day for families to reunite. But for Mi-ho, it was an extremely painful day. She had to transform into her nine-tailed fox form like so many times before. However, since she had already given her fox bead to Ti-woong, the pain she felt was truly gut-wrenching. While falling onto the bed, she accidentally bumped into the video camera that Hye-in had given her, causing the record button to be pressed. Maybe it captured something during Mi-ho's nine-tailed transformation. After the transformation process ended, one of her tails gradually fell off. To become human, she still had to endure 8 more tail droppings like that. The pain each full moon would be amplified many times over. Ti-woong took Grandpa home and discovered his act. He hurried back to find Mi-ho. When he saw that she was okay, he was somewhat relieved. In reality, she was very tired, and her whole body was covered in a cold sweat. But because she was afraid that Ti-woong would worry, she hid everything from him. Right now, Ti-Woong had to go back to take care of Grandpa until he stopped being angry. She needed to be here alone. She wanted him to promise that he would return to our home. Suddenly, Ti-Woong felt strange. Since when had this place become his home? Mi-ho suddenly ran out, calling after him. She asked if he could come back before the bouquet of flowers he gave her withered. That expression, that voice, made Ti-Woong feel confused again. At this moment, the light bulb suddenly flickered. Could it be that even it was hesitating? He tried to gather his thoughts. The girl in front of him, although she had the appearance of a human, inside she was a fox. Maybe he needed to get away from her for a while to redefine his thinking. In her free time, she went to find her shaman friend again, telling him about the process of her tail falling off. She seemed scared when she realized she had to go through that 8 more times. The shaman said that if she were close to the fox bead, it would hurt much less. If so, then she had to cling to Ti-Woong even more. This time, if he didn't come back, she would surely suffer pain for a long time. But because she wanted to become human to be with Ti-Woong, she had to accept it. For now, she didn't want to tell him about this. Meanwhile, he went home and started an ideological revolution for himself. Mi-ho is a fox, a 9-tailed fox, not a person. Although he outwardly said that, in his heart, he took advantage of walking the dog to go to the rooftop to find Mi-ho. At this time, Hyen learned that Di-Woong had been taken back home by Grandpa, so she also went to the rooftop. The two accidentally met in a very awkward way. Hyen kept asking him about Mi-ho's true identity. Where does she live? Why is she still here after you've gone home? Ti-Woong didn't bother to answer and only went to find the video camera to return it to Hyen. That made her even more jealous and envious of Mi-ho. While driving home, she accidentally hit someone, and the person she hit was Mi-ho. She clearly hit her, but how could she have avoided it? Suspicion grew when she discovered a clip on the camera showing a white tail. From then on, Hyen began investigating her love rival through the comments of her friends around her. No one knew where Mi-ho came from and what her identity was, only that Ti-Woong was initially very afraid of being eaten by Mi-ho on the rooftop. At this time, Ti-Woong continued to wait, but the fox didn't come back. She had forgotten to bring her phone. Using the location history of the places she had just been, he found his way to a veterinary hospital. He pretended to bring his dog for an examination to get inside, with the goal of finding Mi-ho. Not seeing her, he gave the doctor a few sarcastic remarks to vent his frustration before leaving. He didn't know that Mi-ho was waiting in front of his house because she was afraid that if Grandpa saw her, he would dislike her even more. So, she decided to leave. When Ti-Woong came home, they accidentally passed each other in front of his house. He saw the flower petals glued to the road, spelling out his name. He decided to chase after her, and they went for a walk together. Ti-Woong told her about his childhood. After his parents died in an accident, his grandfather became more precious than ever. Just as he was to him, he was also the same to Grandpa. At this point, Mi-ho saw people playing badminton, so she wanted to play too. Ti-Woong indulged her, buying a badminton set. But when it was her turn to hit, the shuttlecock went flying out of bounds. Seeing people eating, she and the dog sat and drooled longingly, no different from each other. Forced to, Ti-Woong bought her food and even gave her his portion. However, she took some of hers and shared it with the pet dog, looking so adorable. It was time for Grandpa's dinner, so Ti-Woong had to go home. He told Mi-ho to remember to keep in touch and to carry the phone he bought her with her. Mi-ho went over there and found that he had been to her house. She thought she came to his house because she missed him, so he must have missed her too, so he visited her house. Ti-Woong was embarrassed, so he took off quickly. Unexpectedly, he was reminded when he got home. What did you go out for? Surely you missed your girlfriend, right? Making him even more annoyed. Min-suk went to ask the director to cancel the contract with Ti-Woong, but she accidentally tripped and knocked a cup of coffee onto the Chow Yun Fat CD that the director liked the most. He started to freak out, yelling at her because it was a limited edition, and he had to go all the way to Hong Kong to buy it. Min-suk angrily stormed off, vowing to go to Hong Kong and stand in line to buy the CD to return it to him. As soon as she left the door, she received a call from Hyen. She told Min-suk that her father was a doctor, so he would personally re-examine Ti-Woong thoroughly. Also that the paternal grandfather and paternal aunt had been pressuring to bring Ti-Woong to the hospital. On the other hand, Hyen also asked 2 of Ti-Woong's close friends to invite Mi-ho. Hearing that Krat would also be there, Mi-ho readily agreed. The smell of the hospital really made Mi-ho feel uncomfortable. If Hyen hadn't said she would take her to see Ti-Woong, she probably would have gone home. Hyen tricked Mi-ho into a room and locked the door, saying that in a little while, a doctor would come to check what kind of monster she was. My Ho panicked, broke open the door, and ran away, but Hyen wouldn't let go. At this point, My Ho had no choice but to tell her that she didn't harm Ti-woong, that she had saved him. She begged Hyen not to bother her anymore. Seeing that My Ho had softened and didn't seem to want to harm her, Hyen pressed her advantage, threatening My Ho to leave Ti-woong on her own, otherwise, she would have her tested and spread rumors. Meanwhile, thanks to the fox bead, Ti-woong's health exam results were fine. He was released by his grandfather and happily brought a lot of beef to celebrate with My Ho. Not seeing her there, he thought she had gone to the veterinary clinic. At this time, My Ho was sitting in the hospital park, struggling intensely. She really didn't want to leave Ti-woong, but forced by circumstances, she had no choice but to call and instruct him. Even without her by his side, he had to protect the fox bead well. Or even if he didn't need the fox bead anymore, he should still protect it, because now she had to leave. Ti-woong had never seen My Ho so serious. He panicked and asked her where she was and told her to stay put, and he would come to pick her up. My Ho was afraid that he would find her, so she ran away quickly. As soon as she turned around, she met Ti-woong's friends, who dragged her to eat meat, so she couldn't refuse. At the barbecue restaurant, she rushed to eat quickly and then had to go into hiding. After eating, she ran away again and accidentally met Ti-woong's grandfather. He apologized for misunderstanding her and invited her to his house. There, he treated her to a lavish barbecue feast, all of the most expensive kinds. My Ho in her head was thinking about going into hiding, but her hands kept picking up meat, and her mouth kept chewing and swallowing. She was invited to eat for free and even got to take 2 bags of meat home with her. My Ho planned to go up to the roof and put the meat in the refrigerator and then find a place to hide. Ti-woong went to meet his friends and learned that Hyen had a hand in this. He went to see Hyen, asking what she had said to My Ho that made her leave. Hyen showed him the photo printed from the video camera, pretending to be innocent, saying that My Ho was afraid of being discovered, so she left him on her own. But Ti-woong knew that My Ho would never leave unless she was forced to. He forbade Hyen from harming My Ho ever again, while affirming that she was not an 8-tailed fox demon. Arriving home, seeing the memories here made her not want to leave. She was so afraid of being away from Ti-woong that she sat and cried like a child. Her tear turned into rain. When Ti-woong saw the rain falling, he immediately thought of My Ho. He called and asked if she was crying. If so, she should stop, because he didn't bring an umbrella, and she had to stop crying for him to come to see her. But this time, no matter what he said, it was useless. Ti-woong had no choice but to say that he missed her very much, so he asked her not to cry anymore. My Ho suddenly obediently listened, stopped crying, and the rain immediately stopped. That day, the shaman had taken the trouble to prepare all the paperwork to give My Ho a good identity. He even ordered a house for her in Tokyo, located in a remote area with the condition that it be spacious and have a garden for holding barbecue parties. While he hadn't returned home yet, My Ho decided to go to Hyen. She did everything she could to show her strength, looking very scary, but in the end, she just clasped her hands and begged her to spare her this time. In a moment of weakness, she told her everything between her and Ti-woong. The fox bead had really saved him from death. Therefore, Hyen brazenly asked her for one. However, the fox bead is unique, so each fox only has one, so she didn't achieve her goal. Hyen came up with another way. She took My Ho to meet the director. Seeing that the girl he had been looking for had appeared, he was very happy. He offered her a role as the female lead in his upcoming film. But under pressure from Hyen, My Ho only agreed to become a stunt performer for dangerous action scenes and had to let Hyen be the female lead. At that moment, Ti-woong had found My Ho. He rushed over and grabbed her hand, as if to protect her from the malicious Hyen. But Hyen still had the audacity to boast, declaring that thanks to My Ho, she'd landed the lead female role. She had exploited My Ho, just like he had. Hearing this, Ti-woong's demeanor darkened. He realized it was true. He had taken advantage of her, so he sincerely apologized. However, My Ho wasn't angry. Instead, she took the blame, because she was at fault first for threatening to eat him. This made Ti-woong feel a bit less guilty. The two went home and started studying the script. Ti-woong became so absorbed in it that he even spoke his innermost thoughts aloud, without even understanding why he was doing it. After receiving her identification documents, My Ho was overjoyed. But the magician told her that her current identity had already been exposed. If she stayed with Ti-woong, the new identity wouldn't be usable. Even though she now had a savings account, a college degree, and a driver's license, she could live the life of a real human being. But if she couldn't be with Ti-woong, becoming human would be meaningless. Meanwhile, the director had cast all the roles and started rehearsals. Mi-ho quickly became the most outstanding of all the actors there. She attracted a lot of attention, but Ti-woong found opportunities to chase everyone away. The director, Ban, was very pleased to see Mi-ho diligently practicing. He then looked at his daughter and Hye-in fighting and just shook his head in dismay. Throughout the rehearsal process, he was unexpectedly distracted and preoccupied with answering endless phone calls. "I'm sorry, Miss Min-suk, every time I call, you answer but just stay silent, saying nothing." Knowing he needed to show even more sincerity, he reluctantly bid farewell to his dream of becoming a mob boss, packed away all his Chow Yun-fat DVDs, and shed his last tears for his idol. At the awards ceremony, standing before thousands of audience members and on live television, he made ridiculous gestures to thank Min-suk. Watching it on TV, the old woman was moved to tears. That evening, the film crew held a celebratory party, but Mi-ho was absent. Although she was a little disappointed, never having experienced a party before, she lied to Ti-woong, saying she'd be late because she had a date with the chicken lady, due to a threat. In reality, Mi-ho had to lock herself in her house and overcome her boredom. Fortunately, the magician came along and invited her out for fun. He took her shopping and let her enjoy the day. Being with him meant she could have the new identity he'd arranged. Even though she couldn't attend the film party, Mi-ho did attend a university alumni reunion. Although she was having fun, she still felt uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Hye-in noticed that Ti-woong was being extremely careful when interacting with women. The director's daughter tried to kiss him, but he managed to block her with a dried squid. It was lucky, because if he had kissed Mi-ho, she would have been in big trouble. Hye-in began to get suspicious. When she approached Ti-woong to ask him about it, he avoided her like the plague. Ti-woong even firmly stated that the only person he truly cared about right now was Mi-ho. When he got home, Ti-woong saw Mi-ho all dressed up and almost didn't recognize her. To top it off, she frankly boasted that she'd just come back from hanging out with the magician, and had even left her script in his car. Jealous, Ti-woong lied, saying that he had been feeling chest pains lately, possibly due to the side effects of the magical orb. If she was near another man, it would really hurt him. Therefore, from now on, she had to avoid meeting the magician or keep a distance. The next day, the film crew officially began shooting the first scenes. Mi-ho was Hye-in's stunt double, so the two were dressed very similarly. In this scene, Mi-ho had to climb to a very high position and jump down to escape. While Mi-ho was preparing, Ti-woong brought her some water and mistook her for Hye-in. Hye-in suddenly turned around and kissed Ti-woong. On the other side, from high up, Mi-ho suddenly lost all her strength and fell unconscious. Because he had to return Mi-ho's purse, the magician was also at the scene. At that moment, the whole crew was thrown into a flurry of worry. Everyone wanted to call an ambulance to take her to the hospital, but Ti-woong tried to stop them, afraid of exposing Mi-ho's identity as a fox spirit. Unexpectedly, in the chaos, Mi-ho suddenly disappeared. It turned out that the contamination of the magical orb had depleted her energy, causing Mi-ho to lose control. She revealed her true fox form and pursued Hye-in for revenge. Even Ti-woong's appearance couldn't stop her. He was thrown aside, hitting his head and bleeding. Perhaps today, the fox was determined to take the life of this green tea BTCH who specializes in ruining things. Note: green tea BTCH is a modern, slightly crude term, and the translation reflects that. You might consider softening it depending on the context. Just as she was about to strike, Ti-woong suddenly hugged her from behind, wrapping her tightly in his arms. He was scared, apologizing and begging her not to do it. Feeling his warmth, Mi-ho's eyes, filled with murderous intent, gradually faded. Hye-in seized the opportunity to escape, but was captured by the magician. He threatened, "If you hurt Mi-ho again, I will kill you." Hye-in was terrified. Although an unexpected accident had occurred, Mi-ho realized how her existence would harm the person she loved. Ti-woong reassured her that this was just human jealousy, seeing her boyfriend flirting with another girl. He quickly ran to find the ring he dropped in the confusion. Mi-ho took her concerns to the magician to ask for clear advice. A fox spirit and a human cannot be together. After 100 days, she couldn't be with Ti-woong, even if she became human. He had always seen her as a fox spirit anyway. Because she lost her tail, her ability to sense things from afar was weaker than before. Her ears and nose were no longer as sharp. Even though Ti-woong was standing very close, Mi-ho couldn't sense him. The magician took the opportunity to show some affectionate gestures, provoking Ti-woong. Ti-woong, of course, wouldn't let that stand. He stepped forward to greet them and insisted that he was Mi-ho's boyfriend. But the magician revealed that it was just a 100-day marriage contract, leaving Ti-woong dumbfounded. Mi-ho thought that if she just liked and treated Ti-woong well, he would reciprocate those feelings. But perhaps she was just chasing a fleeting dream. So, from now until the end of their 100-day dating contract, she had to learn to live without Ti-woong. Mi-ho took a bag of teddy bears home. From now on, she would attach their eyes as piecework to earn extra money. Not only that, but during this time, she would also practice eating eggs instead of meat. Just like that, Mi-ho created an invisible wall between herself and Ti-woong. She refused to let him interfere in anything happening around her, effectively separating them. Dong-ju had used Hai-in, turning her into a pawn in his plan. Just one sentence, "I'm only half human," was enough to make her obedient. Ti-woong thought that Mi-ho's cold demeanor was due to her hurt feelings over Hai-in's kiss. He tried to explain himself to her, but it seemed nothing changed. Ti-woong was frustrated, feeling like he was being abandoned. Every day, he could only watch her from afar. She refused any help he offered. But instead of gently trying to understand the reason for her change, he snapped, "After the 100 days are up, I'm going home, and you can stay here if you want." This only strengthened Mi-ho's resolve to give up hope. Having experienced a second death when the fox bead was damaged, Mi-ho's pain was doubled. On the night of the full moon, Ti-woong suddenly felt Mi-ho's pain. He rushed back, but she had locked herself inside. Mi-ho gritted her teeth, trying not to make a sound, suppressing her pain for fear of worrying Ti-woong. But this only made him more anxious. He kicked the door down and saw Mi-ho passed out, covered in a cold sweat. He ran to Dong-ju, asking for painkillers for his dog. But Dong-ju knew full well the medicine was actually for the gumiho. The shaman told Ti-woong that he needed to stay close to her. Having the fox bead nearby was much more effective than medicine. Ti-woong returned with the medicine, carefully spoon-feeding Mi-ho and staying up all night to take care of her. But when she woke up, he heard her call and thank Dong-ju. It seemed she deliberately spoke loudly so he could hear. Ti-woong felt incredibly disappointed. Despite this, he offered to take her to the film set, but she refused. However, as Mi-ho ran off, she muttered to herself, "I really like Ti-woong, I don't want to leave him. But because I like him so much, I have to do this so he doesn't realize my feelings." The director praised Mi-ho's scenes. He offered her a lead role instead of her current part-time position. But this meant she had to fill out a registration form with her personal information. Mi-ho went to see Dong-ju again. "If you become Park Sun-do, you can live like a normal human, no need to hide anymore." He also mentioned that today was Sun-do's birthday. The two planned to have dinner together. Meanwhile, at home, Ti-woong felt time was flying by too quickly. He kept thinking about Mi-ho's words and finally decided to spend the remaining time doing something with her. He started by visiting the place in the photo that Mi-ho liked. Just then, his grandfather arrived. Ti-woong asked his savior to call Mi-ho back to help. His grandfather successfully used his sick old man tactic to get Mi-ho to return immediately. When she got home, her grandfather was nowhere to be found. She panicked when she saw the countdown timer erased. She corrected it and refused Ti-woong's invitation to go out, even though she desperately wanted to go. This only infuriated Ti-woong further. He thought she was acting this way because he had lost her ring. So, he spent the entire night searching for it at the film set, even falling asleep there. Finally, fate smiled upon him, and he found it. Ti-woong happily returned home to show Mi-ho, but she was celebrating and having cake with Dong-ju for Sun-do's birthday. Unfortunately, in her haste, she left her phone at home. Ti-woong called her and accidentally read a text message, learning she was with Dong-ju. He also saw the documents under the name Park Sun-do, but with Mi-ho's picture. To figure out what was going on, he rushed to the restaurant with the file. But by then, Mi-ho had already left. He couldn't let this happen. He decided to confess his feelings to Mi-ho. I like you very much." These were the words Mi-ho had been longing to hear. As long as Ti-woong liked her, she was willing to do anything for him. They reunited after so many trials and tribulations. Finally, she revealed her plan to become human. Ti-woong was just as happy as she was. If she became human, they wouldn't have to sneak around anymore. Suddenly, he felt the urge to kiss her, pulling her close for a satisfying kiss. He also happily returned the ring he had found. This time it's for real. They were about to get even more affectionate, but because the fox bead had been damaged by the kiss with Hai-in, it now protested every time they kissed. Ti-woong, having a low pain tolerance, had no choice but to endure and abstain from kissing for another 3 months. Ti-woong didn't expect Mi-ho to plan her life so quickly. After becoming human, she would mate with Ti-woong, marry him, and bear his children. He imagined his life according to Mi-ho's plan. Very quickly, he'd have 7 daughters by the age of 23. They'd be lined up from youngest to oldest, constantly screaming for meat. Just thinking about it was terrifying. He was still young, with his whole future ahead of him. So, he advised My Ho to slow down and take things one step at a time. Dongju saw them overcome so many challenges and hardships, yet still return to each other. He thought he had lost all hope and decided to give up. He planned to live on a remote island and no longer protect My Ho. He warned her that if she made her own decisions, she would have to bear the consequences. While taking My Ho home, he noticed a strange child following and bothering her. Unexpectedly, the child turned out to be a goblin. It recognized My Ho as a gumiho and followed her to the film set, where it smelled the fox bead within Ti-woong. Taking advantage of a quiet moment, it secretly approached Ti-woong, intending to steal the fox bead. Unfortunately, it was caught by Dongju. Because of this, it revealed to him that the fox bead inside Ti-woong was refined from a fire demon. This detail reminded him of Kinnan, the woman he had once deeply loved. My Ho and Ti-woong's relationship had progressed significantly. He even proactively took her home to meet his grandfather. On this occasion, she showcased her talents in playing the flute, traditional dancing, and painting for his grandfather's enjoyment. As expected, the traditional etiquette she learned from 500 years ago perfectly suited his taste. Only Min-suk was unhappy because she saw My Ho eating a lot of meat, barely touching the kimchi and pickles she had made. This forced Ti-woong to create a distraction and eat My Ho's share. After dinner, Ti-woong showed My Ho his photo albums from childhood to present. My Ho was fascinated because he had changed so much in just over 20 years, while she had lived for 500 years without much change. So, they agreed to create many memories together from now on. First, they took a selfie to commemorate the day she met his family. Dongju drove to the temple and stood before the painting, asking the 3 goddesses, "Grandmother, is that fox bead the remaining spiritual energy of Kinnan?" Dongju painfully realized he was repeating his past mistakes. 1,000 years ago, while their love was blossoming, the director asked Ti-woong to film in China for 2 months. Upon hearing the news, My Ho was very sad, afraid of being a burden to him. She feared he would refuse the opportunity because of her. Understanding this, Ti-woong quickly reassured her, showering her with compliments, listing 9 advantages of dating a 9-tailed fox. At that moment, My Ho felt overwhelmed with happiness. She intended to go with Ti-woong, but Dongju told her about the little goblin trying to steal the fox bead. He advised that the further Ti-woong went, the better. So, My Ho went home and demonstratively ate a large basket of vegetables to show she was fine with Ti-woong leaving, so he wouldn't worry. Before Ti-woong left, he gave her an album. She used it to record beautiful memories with his grandfather, Min-suk, and her friends, to become more like a human. She also practiced eating vegetarian meals every day, but being a carnivore, eating only vegetables was beyond her imagination. When she got home and saw Ti-woong, Enhu's emotions overflowed. The more he showed his determination to protect the mystical orb, the more intensely her own resolve to protect him grew. Ti-woong officially asked My Ho to be his girlfriend. From now on, they decided they wouldn't run away anymore. They would cherish the time they had left and enjoy being happy together. Seeing another couple being all lovey-dovey, Ti-woong got jealous and opened his mouth, waiting for My Ho to feed him. But she quickly devoured the entire cup of ice cream, finishing it all herself. Ti-woong then took My Ho to the river to swim. Somewhat unexpectedly, they ran into Director Ban and Min-suk's couple there, too. Turns out, Ti-woong wasn't the only one ditching work. The director was as well. That night, when they went to the wishing well, My Ho suddenly thought about disappearing from Ti-woong's life forever. She hid behind a tree, telling herself that it would be enough if she just remained in Ti-woong's memories. But then, when he found her, she softened and couldn't bear to let go. My Ho returned to their shared home, and together they made plans for what their lives would be like after their 100-day dating contract ended. By then, My Ho would have become human. Then, in winter, Ti-woong would take her skiing, and they would celebrate Christmas together. And in spring, they would go to the Han River to see the cherry blossoms bloom. No matter where they went or what they did, as long as Ti-woong was by her side, My Ho would be happy. Another day passed, and My Ho regretfully crossed off another date on the calendar. As far as she was concerned, becoming human was useless now. The next day, Ti-woong went to school and ran into Hyen. She realized that the names Park Sanju and Park Dongju were connected, so she warned him that he might be getting manipulated. But Ti-woong still only trusted his heart, and he accepted letting Hyen use him as she pleased. His answer infuriated Hyen, but there was nothing she could do. To make the most of their remaining time, Ti-woong decided to take My Ho with him to China for filming. That day, My Ho went to see Dongju to say goodbye, but really, it was to secretly steal the exorcism sword cable. Just as she was about to get it, Dongju caught her. He told her not to touch it, asking if she was planning to use it to disappear. Was it worth it? Would Ti-Woong be willing to die for her? Didn't she feel that it was unfair? If she disappeared, Ti-Woong would just fall in love with someone else and quickly forget her. If she didn't believe it, then she should test it herself. Unexpectedly, Dongju's words shook her. Doubts about Ti-Woong suddenly arose in her mind. She was a bit sensitive lately. She would constantly ask, "If both you and I fell into the water, would you save me? If there was a fire, would you let me go first? If we were hanging precariously from a cliff, what then?" Ti-Woong didn't mind answering all her questions, saying that he would save himself first because she was a fox spirit and could save herself. Ti-Woong was just joking, but My Ho thought it was true. Ti-Woong said, "Who wants to die? Of course I want to live." These words made My Ho even more uneasy. This made her face constantly furrowed with worry, fearing that Ti-Woong would forget her when she died. So she wanted them to make as many beautiful memories as possible. This time, My Ho wanted to go to the zoo, but Ti-Woong seemed hesitant. After seeing that she seemed upset, he unexpectedly prepared kimbap for them to take on their outing. Arriving at his house, My Ho overheard his grandfather saying that it was the place where Ti-Woong's parents had their accident. No matter who asked him to go to the zoo, he always avoided it. So, he must really love her a lot. His words reassured the fox a little. Therefore, she was willing to sacrifice 500 years of cultivation in exchange for 50 days of happiness with Ti-Woong. They decided to go to China together. Ti-Woong went to the film crew to arrange his luggage first, while My Ho had to say goodbye to everyone. At that moment, Dongju also dressed up handsomely to see her one last time. Was she really going to die for Ti-Woong? He thought she was foolish to be willing to die for a mortal. The fox replied that she thought she should be praised. Even though she couldn't become human, she liked sacrificing everything for the person she loved. Knowing he couldn't stop My Ho's decision, Dongju went to manipulate Hai-In, telling her that after 100 days, if she took the mystical orb, Ti-Woong would die. So, they both started to take action separately. Hai-In immediately stopped Ti-Woong from going to the airport. She told him that if he continued to be with My Ho, he would die. On the other side, Dongju went to the airport to find My Ho. He suggested that she give up soon to lessen her pain, because if Ti-Woong knew the truth that he would die, he wouldn't come. But My Ho still decided to trust Ti-Woong. She tricked Dongju and ran out of the airport to find her lover. Unexpectedly, that was when Ti-Woong arrived. It turned out that he had discovered the mage's plot in time. If he was afraid of death and didn't go to the airport as promised, Dongju would have had the opportunity to take My Ho away to separate them. So, at all costs, Ti-Woong had to meet My Ho to return the mystical orb. The moment he saw My Ho again, Ti-Woong emotionally said, "Were you just going to disappear like that and leave me alone? If after 100 days, one of us has to die, then 50 days have already passed. Take the orb and see if it can save the situation. If we live together. If we die together." Dongju watched his rival return the mystical orb to My Ho with resentment, because there was nothing he could do. As soon as the kiss ended, Ti-Woong immediately collapsed. She took him to the emergency room, anxiously pacing back and forth. Dongju said that Ti-Woong only had half of his life left, because half of it had been transferred into the mystical orb. Now, depending on his initial health or lifespan, it would be seen whether he would wake up. My Ho intended to transfer the mystical orb back to Ti-Woong, but she was stopped. It's useless to transfer it again. While My Ho was being pulled away by Dongju, Ti-Woong miraculously woke up. He said loudly to Dongju, "Let go of My Ho's hand. Get out of here right now." So they had overcome Dongju's calculations. What would be the result of this? Let's wait and see. The two of them were happily talking about the mystical orb inside My Ho's body when his grandfather suddenly appeared. He mistakenly thought the mystical orb in My Ho's belly was his great-grandchild, so he was so happy he almost fainted. Even though they denied it, he insisted on taking My Ho to an obstetrician. Afraid, they had to admit that My Ho was indeed pregnant to facilitate taking care of his future daughter-in-law and great-grandchild. Grandfather brought My Ho back to live in his house. However, on just the first night, My Ho suddenly transformed, turning into a fox spirit. With glowing blue eyes, she kept demanding that Ti-Woong transfer energy to her at the right time. At that moment, Min-Suk received a text message from Hai-In, which was a screenshot from a film in the camera, along with a message telling her to pay attention to My Ho, which made her very confused. Suddenly hearing a commotion in the living room, Min-Suk went inside to see them cuddling. Fortunately, Ti Wung gave My Ho the foxtail cloak. Thanks to it, she returned to normal. However, when she woke up, she didn't remember anything. So, he had to stay by her side, watching over her all night to make sure she slept soundly. Unexpectedly, the next morning, while eating with the family, My Ho transformed again. She kept demanding meat, which made Ti Wung very worried. She even wanted to devour the family dog. From this point on, he realized that My Ho could transform at any time without any warning signs. Hiding it from everyone became increasingly difficult. Currently, only Dongju understood My Ho's condition best, so Ti Wung went to him for answers. Dongju said that in reality, the fox instincts in her were awakening. At this time, fox and human energy had been harmoniously balanced. But because My Ho drank Dongju's blood, his half-human, half-demon blood still flowed in her body, and it could kill her at any time. However, if the two energies combined correctly, she would become half-human, half-demon like Dongju. To know whether the energy was combining correctly, it had to be seen in the next transformation. If the fifth tail didn't disappear, it meant success. But if the tail still disappeared, then on the 100th day, she would definitely die. Because of this serious matter, he couldn't let My Ho stay at his house anymore. Returning that night, he had to confess to his grandfather that My Ho wasn't pregnant. Everyone had misunderstood. Ti Wung had never seen his grandfather so angry and disappointed. Ti Wung's life also became more difficult as he had to constantly lie to protect My Ho. So, the two returned to the school rooftop, living together. That day was also the day the fox was losing her fifth tail. All night, Ti Wung was so worried that he couldn't sleep. He sat beside her, watching My Ho until she startled and ran into the bathroom. This time, having the mystical orb, she didn't feel any pain. One person outside was very worried, while the person inside showed a happy face. My Ho came out happily, showing him that another of her tails had disappeared. She was afraid she would grow another tail, but now she was relieved because she was about to become human. However, this made Ti Wung even more worried because My Ho's death was progressing. Not knowing what to do, he went to Dongju again for help. Dongju said that fox blood and human blood needed to be balanced to sustain My Ho's life. But because her desire to become human was so strong, she wanted to become human for him. So, if Ti Wung was willing to leave her, Dongju would have a way for My Ho to live like him, as half-human, half-demon. The next morning, he decided to take her to Dongju, because he knew that only by being with him would the person he loved live. In the car, Ti Wung had to say terrible words that hurt them both. Her transformations lately were really affecting his life, making him scared and afraid of being discovered by everyone. Always focusing only on her made him feel very tired. The more My Ho acted understanding, the more his heart ached. From now on, I won't bother you anymore. Don't take me to Dongju. I don't want to. Finally, he had to use force. He pulled the car over to the side of the road and left her in the middle of the road. He said, I thought I could endure until you became human. But now there's no guarantee. I feel scared, worried, and troubled, so I can't continue to be with you anymore. From now on, please go to Dongju and live as a Park Sandu. That will make me feel more comfortable. And remember, never see me again. My Ho silently watched Ti Wung leave, only comforting herself, he abandoned me. Maybe he's just too tired. I'll try to change and be good again. She didn't know that in the car, Ti Wung was crying and torturing himself a lot. Because he was too sad, he went drinking until he was completely drunk. Fortunately, his friend took him back to the rooftop to rest, so My Ho had the opportunity to take care of him. However, when he woke up, Ti Wung was firm, determined to leave her. At this moment, she ran after him, clinging to him with a strong belief in the story that after 100 days of losing all her tails, she would become human. But only Ti Wung knew very well that the ending wasn't as she thought. To protect her, he had to say that even if she became human, in his eyes, she would still just be a monster. After saying that, Ti Wung tried to run as fast as he could to hide his tears. Suddenly, a rainstorm broke out, causing him to falter. Even though he knew My Ho was very heartbroken and crying like this, he had no other choice. Ti Wung chose to focus on his career, going to China with the film crew to continue his dream. A month after returning, My Ho had also left the rooftop house and moved in with Dongju. She went by the name of Park Sanu, living like a normal person. Today was already the 88th day. In the next 12 days, would My Ho's transformation help her prevent death? At this moment, My Ho and Dongju were trying on wedding dresses. They planned to have a wedding and even prepared invitations for Ti Wung to attend. They both wanted Ti Wung to witness the moment they were happy together. Dongju truly hoped that My Ho could leave Ti Woong, no longer wanting to become human, so that the transformation process would stop and she would live. However, My Ho often went to the park near Ti Woong's house to wait for him to walk his pet dog. At such times, the dog would often run to her for a treat. After a few times, it led its owner to My Ho. She planned to personally give him the wedding invitation and tell him that she was doing very well living with Dongju, but she mistakenly gave him a cosmetics voucher instead. It turned out, the girl he loved was still as foolish as ever. Turning around, the dog had disappeared. Ti Woong called home and learned that it had run back on its own. However, My Ho didn't hear the content of the phone call. She was still confused, looking for it, even taking out the bag of food it liked to lure it over. He began to suspect whether My Ho had really become human. Why were her ears so sharp, but she couldn't hear him talking on the phone? Even when he held her back, she didn't have the strength to push his hand away. She said that because she wanted to act like a normal person, she was pretending. Ti Woong was determined not to believe it and wanted to find out for himself, so he specifically followed her. But it wasn't until the moon rose that he knew how many tails My Ho had left. Therefore, he had to resort to petty blackmail, demanding that she repay him for the time he bought her meat. My Ho agreed to take him to eat barbecue here. Ti Woong intentionally grilled each piece very slowly to see if My Ho was still hungry for meat. Surprisingly, she didn't touch the chopsticks once the whole time. It made him eat so much that he kept throwing up. My Ho took this opportunity to quickly pay the bill and leave. Ti Woong chased after her, demanding that she buy soda. He wanted to spend more time with her. My Ho put money into the machine to buy a drink, but this time it swallowed her money. Ti Woong pointed out that she also had to kick the machine to get the stuck money out, like a normal person. It seemed her energy had weakened, but My Ho denied it and left. Next, he pretended to be sick so she would lean on him, but she wasn't foolish anymore. Looking at him, she knew he was acting. Suddenly, her face turned serious, and she asked him not to follow her anymore. My Ho tried every way to shake Ti Woong off, but then she hid in a corner, secretly watching him. Currently, Dongju had prepared the itinerary to take her to settle in Japan. He vowed to let her continue to live at all costs. He thought that when she was away from Ti Woong, her desire to become human would weaken. But unexpectedly, it was so strong that she foolishly took the mystical orb out of her body. That night, the full moon, the process of losing her tail started again, and she had to stand next to her mystical orb, holding her belly, to reduce the pain. Now she only had one tail left. If it also fell off, then there would be no hope of saving her. Director Ban and Min Suk's wedding was about to take place. Ti Woong had to help her prepare, so he couldn't go to find My Ho as planned. But they accidentally met at the event center. Knowing that My Ho and Dongju were getting married, he was suddenly heartbroken. He couldn't believe that without him, she was so happy. That was also when Ti Woong accepted letting go so that she could do what she wanted. But when he returned to the film set, Ti Woong noticed My Ho appearing in a photo taken with the film crew while filming in China. Could it be that she had followed him all the way there? Ti Woong deliberately went to the rooftop house to find her but didn't find her. When he looked at the calendar, he discovered that someone had added crosses to the numbers. He deliberately left to lure My Ho out. Sure enough, as soon as she left the door, Ti Woong was standing there waiting. He asked her if she had followed him to China. My Ho tried to run away, but the more she ran away, the more suspicious he became. Having no other choice, she showed him that she only had one tail left. The transformation process was still taking place and death was still stalking her every day. Knowing her current situation, Ti Woong couldn't sit idly by. He demanded to die for her and give his life to her, only hoping she would never disappear. Hearing that Ti Woong could sacrifice himself for her, My Ho was even more heartbroken and determined to leave him. She went to Dongju, apologizing to him right in front of Qin Dan. When committing suicide, he had said the same thing. He was really obsessed and afraid of seeing My Ho disappear. She gave him the vial of mystical orb containing half of Ti Woong's life. It turned out that all this time, she was just pretending to be obedient and listening to him. She had given up the intention to live since moving in with Dongju, leaving to protect Ti Woong. She begged him to lie so that Ti Woong would accept this mystical orb. Consider it her last wish before she left forever. However, Dongju came up with another plan. He gave the mystical orb to Ti Woong and said that if he carried the mystical orb, when he died, the mystical orb could absorb his remaining energy. At that time, he would kill him to put the mystical orb back into My Ho's body, helping her to maintain her life. There was even a chance to become human again. As soon as Dongju finished speaking, Ti Woong swallowed the mystical orb without hesitation, to the point that Dongju was surprised by this recklessness. Why can humans be so stupid for love? After Ti-woong left, Mi-ho appeared. She stood in front of Dong-ju, proudly saying he was wrong. The love between her and Ti-woong was not illusory as he thought. Mi-ho told Dong-ju to take her far away, and even when she disappeared, she hoped that Dong-ju would never see Ti-woong again, so that he could live a good life for the rest of his life. Seeing that both of them were willing to die for each other, Dong-ju now realized that even dying for her, he didn't dare, so how could he deserve to interfere in the feelings between her and Ti-woong? So, he went to tell Ti-woong that the mystical orb was just fake. It was just a test, and he accepted to withdraw so that the two of them could be together for the remaining days of their lives. Meanwhile, the abbot at the temple welcomed another group of visitors. They heard about the legend of the nine-tailed fox. This time, he revealed the ending that the goddess had promised, that if the fox found a husband who was wholeheartedly loyal and waited for her, perhaps heaven would forget the troubles that Mi-ho had caused, and she would be able to stay on Earth forever. Turning around, the three goddesses in the painting suddenly disappeared. It turned out that the goddess left the painting to remind Dong-ju of that promise. Not long after, Ti-woong and Mi-ho attended Min Suk and Director Ban's wedding together. The wedding of Chow Nhu letter 180 Fat's godbrother also looked very cool. The director, when he stopped trembling, stepped onto the aisle bravely as if he was marching. Unexpectedly, he showed off too much, almost falling flat on his face while handing over the bride. They whispered, "Is the baby okay?" So, grandfather now has another new title, which is grandfather. There is no joy like seeing them happy. Mi-ho also felt happy in her heart. Now she doesn't need to have a fake marriage with Dong-ju anymore and can choose her own husband. This lasted for 500 years, no small feat. They took wedding photos together, and tonight would be the night of the fullest moon of the month again. The two of them planned for the last day when Mi-ho was alive, but to do anything they had to wait for tomorrow, even to visit some acquaintances to say goodbye. However, everyone was busy, and they didn't know where to go. With only that little day left, Ti-woong decided to take Mi-ho to the fountain outside the park. But this place was also under repair. The water wouldn't be turned on until tomorrow. Ti-woong was extremely nervous. There was no tomorrow, only tonight. He didn't know if Mi-ho would still be alive. He wanted to create a beautiful moment for her before she left. And then, he decided to choose sparkling fireworks instead of the fountain. Luckily, Mi-ho was overjoyed with just simple things like this. The two sat next to each other, reminiscing about memories mixed with joy and sadness. Then there was the feeling of excitement when the moon just reached its peak. Staying or leaving forever was in this decisive moment. Mi-ho worried that Ti-woong would be heartbroken, so she covered his eyes with one hand. She gave him a final kiss. The transformation process was about to happen, causing her last tail to fall off. When he opened his eyes, Mi-ho had disappeared. She disappeared as suddenly as she had first appeared. A page of memories about Mi-ho flashed through his mind. Also in this gym, she was once a female fox with 9 shimmering tails. But now she had disappeared, leaving no trace. Mi-ho said to consider her as a dream. Ti-woong was heartbroken. How could he do that? Ti-woong tried to find Mi-ho everywhere, but it was all in vain. He walked around in a daze, saying, "Mi-ho is gone, really gone." Suddenly, he was hit by a car. As he fell to the ground, it immediately started to rain. Each raindrop falling on his cheek made him feel that Mi-ho was still around somewhere. Not long after the day Mi-ho disappeared, Director Ban's film, after its release, became a blockbuster film all over the world. Ti-woong was also a famous star. Their family had just welcomed another cute, adorable grandchild. Everyone's face radiated happiness. Hai-in now had a new target, so she no longer paid attention to Ti-woong. Staying away from women's troubles, Ti-woong had more time and spirit to work. He even created a script about his love story. The story of a female fox who was imprisoned and came down to Earth to find her husband. However, while the film crew was filming, Dong-ju appeared. Dong-ju was now a teaching professor. His handsome face also made many girls infatuated. He sat there, like Ti-woong and many others, waiting for the solar eclipse to begin. The moon and the sun were not allowed to meet each other, but when all the rules were broken, the moon and the sun met at the same time. That was when heaven went crazy. Just as the solar eclipse started, Ti-woong received a phone call from Mi-ho's phone. "It's me," the familiar voice from inside said, making him extremely confused. He asked where she was, but she couldn't say it. Ti-woong was lost, running around looking for her everywhere. When the eclipse ended, that was when she hung up. Too disappointed, he sat crying alone, no different from a child. Suddenly, a familiar call made him look up. It was her, it was his Mi-ho in the flesh. So heaven couldn't bear to stop them. The two of them came together. Ti Woong's loyalty helped My Ho keep her life and return to Earth. On the night of the full moon, the two sat on the roof of the school again. My Ho and Ti Woong finally got back together. It wasn't a very surprising ending, but the surprise here was that My Ho still had one last foxtail. His girlfriend was still a fox. Instead of worrying, the two now chose to cherish each other every day, enjoying the happiness of the present.